Hi, everybody. Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of December 8th through 14th. And got a few things going on, especially with Mercury and Mars. Mars is going to be what I would call the center stage, but Mercury, definitely a lot going on too. They're both changing signs. Mars is going to go into Capricorn, the sign of its exaltation. Mercury is backtrack. You remember it backtracked for a while in Mercury retrograde, so it's going to go back into the sign of its detriment, Sagittarius, this week, and also aspect a lot of the outer planets. A little sun action too, the Jupiter Chiron square next weekend. And if you saw the blog a couple weeks ago, this is also the week Neptune is going to go direct, which I'm not going to talk about. I talked about that in the monthly blog 2 weeks ago. So if you want to hear a little bit more about that, just go back and check that blog out. So just a little bit of business first. The Astrological Winds channel is a free video blog that I do on as a YouTube channel now for I think it's 5-6 years now. And if you have a YouTube account and you like what you see, I'd really like you to become a follower. And not only become a follower, I'd really like you to turn your notifications on so that when I do put the blog up, you actually watch it. So, it's like kind of like become a follower, but then never see the blog again. That is kind of a little bit pointless. So remember to turn those notifications on so that you remember it's there. Remember too, it is available on podcast, an exact same audio copy of the video on the YouTube channel. And I really think that just helps free people up in this modern day and age where our time is so valuable. You can listen to the blog while you're on your way to work, sitting in traffic, whatever it may be. You can kind of do it as a multitasking type of thing, while you're doing something else that's kind of a little brainless, like, walking the dog or whatever. It's a good time to just maybe be able to do that. So still available on podcasts. Just look up Astrological Winds channel on your podcast app and you'll find options to watch it. There's more than one that takes it. It also has an Instagram page. So if you have Instagram, Kate, please become a follower of the Astrological Winds channel, and you'll see the link come up to the YouTube channel every week in your newsreel, and another way to be remembered. And it's also always available on my website, www.astrologicalwinds.com. And you'll see a tab with the blogs. And not only is the current blog there, but I'd go back months with the blog. So if there's anything you missed that you want to check out again, they're available. That also has the menu for all of my professional services. I've been a professional astrologer for over 20 years, have hundreds and hundreds of very happy clients. I would really love to do your chart when you're ready for that. I would really love to do your predictive work every year around your birthday. If you need monthly or weekly help, I'm available for that too. Do all kinds of other charts too, relationship, relocation. Check it out. The website, I'll talk more about that later, but it's got the menu and the prices. I can work with you and payments on the prices if need be. All right. And so the one thing I do ask every week is that you turn somebody else onto the blog when you listen to it, because it actually costs me money to put the blog out. So I really love the way it grows in an organic, word of mouth way. I think I really find the people who really want to keep listening to it every week and not just want to become a follower because they heard it once and were intrigued, so really like that kind of depth and energy, and want to work with those kind of people actually. So yeah, it's like I said, Mars is taking the main stage this week, and that's going to start today on Monday, if you're watching this on Monday anyway. And it starts with a square to Saturn, which is not easy. Mars, the two squares it has both have a dissipating energy. Remember, Mars is about our energy, right? It's about what we do, right? It's our actions and the things that motivate our actions, right? And both Saturn and Neptune have a dissipating effect for different reasons on Mars, which is energy, which is our normal energy. So we're going to do a lot of, a slowdown physically a lot this week, especially in the beginning of the week. And then on the weekend, there might be a little bit of time somewhere right in the middle where we might be able to lift it up a little bit again. But anyway, Mars with Saturn is usually, our actions are somehow blocked either by circumstances that we don't have control of in the real world, or usually many times by authorities, people like our bosses or anyone that has any kind of power over us. They can really slow us down, maybe even completely block us. And this can make it really difficult, obviously, to make any kind of progress on what we're doing. If we do make any progress, it's usually kind of minimal and slow. And one of the things here too, to be really, what's really interesting with Mars Saturn, it can trigger fears that we have in us, like, and those authorities or those people with power above us seem to have a way of being able to all of a sudden poke at those fears, when Mars and Saturn are together like this, and make us, feel bad about ourselves, or hit things where it drains our confidence, makes us feel like that infamous, oh, we're not good enough, which is just a horrible disease to have, right? So, so what ends up happening with Mars Saturn is we cap that energy, right? We keep it inside, right? And we can build up anger inside that slowly is this smoldering kind of resentment. And there can be a lot of anger being held inside with a Mars Saturn, again, about whatever circumstances we feel are blocking us or whatever people we feel are blocking us. And that can, obviously go out onto the authorities and the institutions of society too with Saturn, so yeah, this is a time, I tell people it's not easy. How do you deal with something like this? And I tell people it's really best to try to confront your own fears. Like, if you are being triggered by this stuff, what is it in you that's being feared? Because if you think you can, get into the ring and fight this out, well, it can probably end up being a really long drawn out battle that you most likely are going to end up losing, or even in victory not going to feel that good about, like, so I really think, it's best to confront ourselves and see if there's like things that, like, these fears that are, that are being triggered by these situations, but are, can we work through them? Can we face them? And then the other thing is, I do think it's good to do physical stuff still with this energy, because it will help channel some of the anger and resentment into something, but you just have to do it in a really cautious, kind of slow approach, and not be attached to how much you're actually getting done, because it probably won't be a real lot. Okay, so that's how I would deal with the Mars Saturn part. Now, Wednesday is the day that Neptune goes direct, and like I said, I talked about that in the monthly, which was 2 blogs ago. At the end of that blog, I'm not going to talk about it again because there's too much other stuff going on. So Wednesday through Friday is when Mercury kind of takes over a lot of the energy this week, okay? And it's going to transition back into Sagittarius, right? But before it does that, it's going to square Uranus on Wednesday first, and then it'll trine um, Neptune on Thursday before it goes back into Sag, and then on the weekend it'll hit Pluto again with a sextile. So, these are the third hits. Remember, Mercury was just retrograde, right? So now it's moving forward again, and this is the week where it'll really start to come out of its shadow once it gets past Sag, and by next week we'll be full steam ahead with the normal Mercury kind of stuff, business, communications, information, travel, things like that should all start to keep getting better and better. But on Wednesday, the Mercury Uranus can be really overstimulating to the mind, right? It can really, like, there can be ideas coming at us from all directions, different places, and especially through other people within opposition, especially through relationships, and they can be amazing ideas. They can give us like these lightning bolts of insight where, like, we're kind of like seeing the whole package instantly. right? But the thing is, they can really they're untested, first of all, so a lot of them may not stick very well. And the other thing is, they can, like, there's so much of it coming at us that it can really get us scattered. It can really get us, like, really undisciplined in our thinking. And the other thing with this one too is that, are like, we can jump to conclusions really quickly and make a lot of mistakes. So it's one of these ones where, yeah, we're getting a lot of ideas and stuff, but it's good to let, kind of not make a decision on any of them on this day. Like, kind of give it a few days to see what's actually going to stick to the wall. I think by Saturday, when Mercury sextiles Pluto, that'll give us by then we'll have a good idea of what we really want to put our focus on. But this one, it's almost impossible to focus because there's just so much going on. The other thing is too, it can, because once again, it's an opposition. I have it as a square here, but it's actually an opposition. Um, the that it shows we can be impatient with other people. Like, it can be really hard to, like, hear them out, and before, like, wanting to cut them off and stuff like that. And especially, people who are bringing up the same old stuff, because we really want some kind of new stuff. We're kind of bored with the same old thing with this energy. So we want some kind of new thing brought in, so, like, new ideas is what really fires us up. And then on Thursday, like I said, it's going to trine Neptune first on Thursday before it goes into Sagittarius. So once again, just like it did the first two times it got that Neptune, it's going to fire up our imaginations, right? Mercury and Neptune, that's the mind getting really fired up and can go into, like, this very inspired, imaginative place. It definitely is on the creative side, the non-practical side of the brain, where this is going on. So like, we're kind of really into our dreams and visions, not so much into reality. What's kind of cool about this one too is we have a really good sense of what's going on in each other's minds. It's kind of like that ESP kind of energy where you can feel what other people are thinking on these very, like, non-linear kind of levels. You're getting communications from others, and definitely, like, makes us very interested in any subject matter that's kind of mysterious, like, spiritual things or mysticism, shamanism. So, art with words is a great, if you're some kind of poet or do something lyrical or storytelling or writing, this is just a great day for that energy to really flow out. You can get a lot of stuff to come out. So, and then it goes into Sagittarius. And it's what's interesting, I think, about that is having this trine to Neptune right before going into Sag is just going to feed that Mercury into Sagittarius. Is going to give it, like, this push, like imagination to want to go off to the far horizon, which is what Mercury, when it goes into Sag, which is the sign of its detriment, because it's very curious. It wants to take in more. It has, like, this big vision. It's looking to the future, but it does not want to be bothered with details at all. It's a lot like feeding that Mercury Uranus energy, actually, where, to it, like, details are just something of an annoyance to Mercury and Sagittarius. This is the Mercury that just wants to get more knowledge, deeper knowledge, a Mercury that, just wants to see the big picture and not worry about the little things, that someone else can take care of them. Don't bother me with that stuff. It's just a hindrance to what I want to explore. I want to explore the bigger questions in life, questions of philosophy, questions of society, questions of religion, things like that. That's what we're really into. So, once again, too, we have to be really careful when Mercury goes into Sag. We can be really tactless with our words. Like, we're honest, but we're brutally honest, and so that can definitely, you say the wrong thing at the wrong time. That can really, make us come across as being someone who's very insensitive, and that can turn a lot of people off. Definitely not a time where politeness really is considered a lot within conversation. So we have to be a little bit careful about that. But definitely, our minds are ready to go off on any subject matter that, we are really deeply interested in right now. It's things that we want to explore more. So it's a great time to take secondary courses, things that we already know a lot about. But just be careful, of having this very like arrogant and self-righteous attitude about what you know, and because that can really turn people off, and it can, in a way it can be self-defeating, because you may have something valuable and then people aren't hearing you because of the way you're coming across, and just so to end this one, Mercury on Saturday will sextile Pluto, and that will complete its third and final hit with that and all those outer planets from this whole Mercury retrograde cycle. And I think this one's a good one because, it really helps us to look really deeply within ourselves and other people and see what's really driving our minds and our psyche, what's behind that. We can really get a good idea of that energy. And I think it's also good because, like any kind of deep knowledge we have, we really integrate it. It can help transform our minds. So it's a really great time, once again, for studying stuff, and in particular anything that has to do with human mind studies, things that like psychology and even astrology, or anything that can help us, with that. And this is one of those ones too where we can finally get into the details of some of the ideas that we came up with, or were introduced to with Neptune, with Uranus, or came up with our own imaginations in Neptune. Now we can really work on the details of this, get a much deeper understanding of how it can work, and get that going. And so Mars now, we left it at Saturn early on Monday, and now it's gonna start on Saturday and Sunday is when it starts to actually get involved with the other planets. And once again, I did forget she also does a quincunx Uranus on the weekend, not just the square to Saturn. In fact, the quincunx to Uranus is first on Saturday, and that is very explosive energy. Talk about undisciplined, like I said, with Sagittarius, with Mercury. This Mercury and Uranus together in a quincunx is the definition of undisciplined energy. It's like these big bursts of energy that jack us up really quick, but when they come out, they can be really awkward. They can be really off. They can be really undisciplined, unreliable energy. It's very impulsive the way it comes out, and many times when we act on it like that, we make the situation worse than what it was. So we have to be really careful with this one about being hot tempered. If any of us have that, we know where our temper level is, and this is one of those ones where we can get it triggered and we can definitely go off. But it's also a day where we do need to outlet some of this energy. We just have to be really careful when we're doing physical things about quickly, not thinking and doing something really impulsively and quickly either hurting ourselves or regretting what we did, and even the things we say on Saturday, you have to be really careful about, like, especially with Mercury and Sag now too, feed this at the same time, about really startling people with the things that we say, and like making them all of a sudden be like, change their whole way of seeing us just from one moment that we have. So we can literally damage our reputation, is a good way to say it. I'll say, so then on Sunday, we get the square to Neptune, which is the second square of the week. And like I said, or at the beginning of the blog, this is another one where it's dissipating the energy now, but it's different than from the Mars Saturn. This one the energy is being dissipated because we're tired, basically, like we're worn out. Like, and it can be physically, it can be like psychologically, but basically, it's a day where it was really good to just take the day off and not try to like get too much into anything physical because the energy is not going to be there. If you do something physical, it should be something really mellow like yoga. One of these things too, like this one can feed what I call hopelessness. Like, we can feel like, once again, our actions are not working in the practical world, and it can make us feel like we just want to give up on certain situations and things. And really, that's not the best way to handle this. It's better to just kind of like, take a break instead. But it can be really disheartening when we perceive certain situations or people as being hopeless. And another thing to watch as far as the people thing too, this can make people deceptive. So be careful about being misled by someone, in this situation too, is not being truthful to you. Also can make us, Mars has to do with the body, and Neptune, dissipates boundaries. So like allergies, sensitivities, diseases that you can catch from other people, all those things we're more susceptible to. So it's a good day and to like kind of conserve the energy, not push it out so hard that it's going to end up making us susceptible to something coming in and getting us. But once again, too, this is another one that can trigger fears in us, that can be buried deep in us, and that not good enough energy can come up again. So we have to be really careful of that. But then later in the day, Mars goes into Capricorn, which is the sign of its exaltation. And when Mars goes in, and that'll be for a couple months plus, so when Mars goes into Capricorn, it's like the energy of the conqueror. It's like someone who can come in there with their energy and just take something over and be very effective at doing that, like being a leader by what they're doing, and even admirably. But what does a conqueror have to do? Everything you conquer, then you have to maintain control of. So a lot of the Mars and Capricorn energy starts to go into managing what we've conquered, and trying to get that right. And, we can see this play out in society a lot of times. I've watched Mars and Capricorn for years, every 2.5 years when it goes to Capricorn, where leaders in the world will get really strong armed in what they believe is the right thing for, society to do. So we can really look for that energy in society. But as far as like on a personal level, this can make us act very assertively, very strongly, very willfully for what we want to do. And it's and we can make a lot of progress, towards the goals that we have, towards things that are really important to us. And that is on Capricorn practical things, and that in Capricorn means staying disciplined and sticking to the rules too, and being responsible about those things. Mars in Capricorn has a tremendous amount of courage. It's the courage, of the leaders in a battle or something. It's very driven to be recognized more by society for that leadership quality too. So we can get very, very serious about our career. When Mars is in Capricorn, it's a great place to put a lot of that serious energy. We can be very motivated in our career and get a lot of work done and really become maybe a conqueror there, maybe, move up the ladder, so to speak. So that's one of the best places to place that energy for the next 2+ months. And then Sunday, the sun will also be a little bit busy when it triggers that ongoing Jupiter Chiron square, which is the other thing I talked about in the monthly a couple weeks ago. And it will trine Chiron and quincunx Jupiter. And so the very energized here. I think what this one will be is we've probably discovered some new creative outlet or talent that we had over the last few weeks, maybe even during Mercury retrograde, maybe since Jupiter Chiron even was kicking in. And we're really excited about the chance to use it now. Like we're kind of feeling at balance with it now. We've integrated that energy into us, and it's brought some healing power into us. So I think what happens then is we're in this very high spirited place about it, very positive. And if anything, what we have to be careful of with this is just getting overly excited about having those answers for ourselves, and then maybe getting a little bit undisciplined with the energy, or kind of like almost a little bit too much like cheerleading, and just like getting a little bit scattered out there. But this energy is very supportive of other people, and you can feel really good inside. It can be the point of overbearing to others at times, but it's also the energy of knowing what someone or some situation needs right at the right moment, and being able to bring in a healing energy to that helps that something you've learned, and you can pass on that knowledge to others. So you can be like a godsend to someone else with this energy on the weekend, or someone can be that to you, or vice or both. But and this one too, I think, will also help us see what things inside us make us unhealthy, and therefore we can easily adjust them under this energy. So I really like that energy a lot. So that's what I got for us for this week. Next week we should be getting a new moon. Yeah, we are. It's another critical degree one, 29 degrees of Sagittarius, you guys, on the 19th, right before the solstice, which is on the 21st. So we're going to have some stuff to talk about with the sun next week, mainly as it's getting near the end of its sign. It's going to hit all the aspects as it gets near the end of Sag, all those outer planets as in aspects. And then we will also, like I said, have the new moon hitting in in late degrees of Sag. So that's what I'll be talking about next week. So this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I really need you to pass the link along to someone right now. If you want to give a currency donation, and thank you so much to the people who do. No amount is too small. Like even $5 is helpful. Like, and my Venmo is at Matthew with two T's hyphen in the middle, Lawton, Lauten, and my Cash App is $ Matthew Lawton, all one word, two T's again, capital M, capital L. Thank you for anyone who's done that. The best way to support me, though, is to get to my website and check out my professional services. Because if you haven't had your chart done by a professional yet, it's not the same as getting a printout on a computer, or reading a book, or having a friend who dabbles. You're going to get a lot more out of it. You carry your chart with you your whole life. People spend money on things that disappear in no time, and it's a worthy investment in you, so that you can work with your energy and get greater control of your life and more fulfillment in your life. And it will happen if you do that. And every year, right around your birthday, you should get a predictive reading, just like I do right now for this week. I do for you for a whole year. And if you do it in your birthday month, you get 10% off. Also, relationships, relocation, children's charts, fixed star reading for deeper soul purpose, all that stuff. I do specific questions, elections, horary. Check out the website, check out the pricing. If you can put half up, if it's hard for you to meet the full, you can put half up and pay the rest over the next month or two. I do the payment plans like that. If you have a group and you're looking for a class or a workshop or a lecture, and that can even be done on Zoom, I'm available for things like that. If you're a student, I have a couple, two or three people that are interested in possibly doing a beginner live class where we meet monthly, probably at least two, maybe 3 or 4 times a month. Also have podcasts available that you can just purchase for beginning classes. So check all that stuff out on the website, www.astrologicalwinds.com. Thank you for all your support. And yeah, we've got a lot going on this week. So let's try to, use this energy once again and not get too undisciplined. I think that would be the main thing of the key of this week, and not let this stuff get us down either, in not believing in ourselves, but also not getting too undisciplined about the downloads we have, and try to integrate a lot of that, and then come to a place where we can really have a lot of control over what we're doing, and discipline over what we're doing with the Mars and Cap, and this Sun can be really helpful on the weekend too. All right, I'll see you guys all next week. We'll talk about that new moon in Sag.